Hey guys, Cat97 again. This time the review of the 1/60 scale Perfect Grade Unicorn Gundam from the Gundam Unicorn novels and OVA series. As the name would indicate, we get a lot of white in Unicorn mode for almost the entire machine. It's set off with some dark blue on the feet and also on the backpack. Then we get 3 shades of gray, 1 light gray, which is here on its belly, underneath the neck, and also for the base, which is included. The second shade of gray is a more brownish gray, which is used for pretty much all the weapons except for the beam sabers, and also all the other gray you see on the machine. The joints, some little details here and there, here on the side of the legs, and so on and so forth. Then the third shade of gray is kind of this greenish, bluish, grayish tint we get for the E-packs of the B Magnum, and we also get some spare ones. Then some other things we get: translucent parts. Of course, as you've probably guessed, we get a lot of pink, which is currently still tucked away inside the Unicorn mode. Then the second pieces of translucent plastic we get are clear ones, which are used for the scopes of the B Magnum, beam Gatling guns, and a Hyper Bazooka, but you also get the option to use a sticker. I do like that they gave you clear scopes so that you can paint them in any color you want and still give you the option to use stickers if you'd want to. So for more advanced modelers, go crazy, and for the casual ones, just use the stickers. Talking about giving us options, we also get clear green for the visor, for the eyes, and also clear green for, well, let's quickly turn around, for the camera on the back of its head, and also the main camera, which is currently hidden behind the Unicorn's horn. But the thing about the eyes and the main and the back camera is that they're molded in translucent green plastic, but you once again get the option to use a very nice shiny sticker. So if you're really against stickers, you don't have to use it. You can always go over that with some shiny paint, and it will still be kind of translucent, or simply use a sticker, once again giving us options. And the same story for the eyes, molded in translucent green, but you do get some more shiny stickers for the eyes. And then which finally brings us to this sticker here, which is applied behind the very small slit we see here, and it's the same concept as with the old F90 and F91 kits. It gives it more of a shiny look and doesn't really, and it makes it look less like it's just hollow behind or there's some random, crap behind there. It gives it more, a full feeling, and it looks really cool. Then these stickers, which are left over, these are unfortunately for the online limited full armor pack. Yeah, I wasn't too happy when I saw this included, and full well knowing that they were going to be for the online limited one, it's almost as if they want us to buy it. Also kind of annoys me because say that you're going to buy the full armor set in a few months when they restock it, and you lose this sticker sheet. I mean, God forbid you lose it. Well, have fun painting, I guess. Then a second sticker sheet we get is this one, and these are, well, they serve the same purpose as a sticker that goes behind the visor. They're used for for a few of the Psycho Frame parts of the Unchained mode. You put them behind there, and the silver makes the purple or the pink stand out much, much more. These stickers are for the LED set. You apply them to a few parts, and they kind of hide the LEDs themselves, so you don't really see the gray from the encasing of the LEDs. So these, well, these are kind of meant to make the LEDs blend in with the Psycho Frame. Putting that aside, a final sticker sheet we're getting. These are just the normal peel-off stickers. And, well, you know, go crazy applying them. You get a lot of them. You get all the main markings, and then of the usual warning stickers, like be careful not to put your head inside of a thruster, which is never a great idea. Moving on with articulation, and this has always been kind of the Achilles heel of the Unicorn Gundam model kits. Even the Master Grades had some problems, but let's see how this one fares. So the head, up and down, no problem. Turns around all the way. Still get the usual forwards and backwards a little bit. And also this part here goes up and down a little bit to give it even more upwards movement, which is pretty nice. And down, back again. Arms rotate around all the way. Up normally like this. And then we get some more interesting joints here. The first hinge is right up there. It kind of makes it move up like this, and then there's a second hinge right there to make the arm go up. And now, without any accessories, this is absolutely fantastic. So we can also turn this around again to give it like the final shooting pose of the normal Gundam. But the problem really comes into play when you put an accessory in there. A beam saber isn't going to be a problem, but apply any other accessory there and it's going to come crashing down. You can see it's already kind of fighting against it. So that's the big bummer here. So if you want, you can of course strengthen them with the super glue trick, which is definitely something you're gonna have to do if you want to hold the weapons in very dynamic poses. But hey, you can do it. That's probably the most important thing here. Now the elbow joints are double jointed and go up as far as they could, which is very great. But be warned, you do have to be a bit careful with them, because if you bend them like this, they're only going to go up that far. So be careful. You start with the lower joint and then proceed with the upper joint. The hands, well, they're your typical perfect grade hands, articulated in absolutely every single way. And there goes one of the fingers, which is actually a good thing, because fingers completely articulated can do everything you'd want them to do. And they're on a little ball joint right there, so go crazy with those hands. I mean, it wouldn't be exaggerating to say that they can do pretty much everything you could do with your own hand. That index finger does like to pop off though. So yeah, moving on with that. Then the waist itself isn't gonna do a lot in unicorn mode because, you know, it's kind of sealed here with the transformation. But there is some lower body movement. Will turn around all the way, well, if you take it off the stand, because that's what it's colliding with at the moment. But take it from me, you can turn around all the way, and there is a little bit of jiggle going around because it is on a ball joint. Then the legs go forward all the way, and that wasn't supposed to happen. As I was saying, forwards all the way, and also backwards all the way. And then perhaps the most impressive feature of this entire kit, in terms of articulation at least, double jointed all the way back, and some really nice part separation going on with the knee. Absolutely fantastic. Especially for the Unicorn Gundam. And the legs will, of course, also go side to side. Go, and we'll rotate around all the way. Going from the most impressive piece of articulation to perhaps the least impressive. The feet, well, they go forwards a bit, backwards a bit, and side to side a bit. And there's even a double joint, one at the bottom and one at the top. And, you know, the articulation, it's there, but nothing impressive. Of course, this is completely pushed aside since we already get in a display base with this kit. So the lack of articulation in the feet, it won't prevent you from doing any awesome poses because you already have your action base to put him on. And if all of that still wasn't enough, there is one more feature this kit has for articulation. And what you have to do is, there's this little switch here. Pull it up and the legs will come falling down. And now you will get somewhat extra articulation for some action poses. And you see they go up a lot higher than they did just now. Also backwards a lot more, but come on. There we go. As you can see, this is a lot better in terms of articulation just now. But of course, when we pull them down, it might look a bit weird if you're just gonna have him standing like this. Also, suddenly he's significantly higher. So this option is really for people who really like action poses. And really, who doesn't? So overall, the articulation is great, especially for a model kit of the Unicorn Gundam. The only real downside ends up being the shoulders, which are a bit on the weak side, especially once you put weapons inside of the hands. Talking about weapons, let's bring them in. First of all, we of course get the Beam Magnum, and even has some reload capabilities. Go. And the cool thing is, all of these canisters, all these E-caps, I guess I should say, are individually molded, and you can actually move them up. Though after a few of them, this will actually go up, allowing them to pass through. You know, after this one, this handle here will get in the way, so you will have to remove that if you want him to use the final E-cap. But it is very cool that you actually have that feature going on. Let's quickly put that back in. There we go. As I said, this thing actually goes up, allowing the E-cap to be ejected the way it should be. Close it back up, ready to fire again. Handle here slides up and down, and this thing here also goes up and down, which will allow it to connect to other parts to store it. And the really cool thing is that you can actually put this on the other side. So if you want your Unicorn Gundam to be a lefty, go crazy and let your Unicorn Gundam be a lefty, or have him dual wield it and just make it match. Of course, we have holes in either side. Once again, you can make him right or a lefty, and we'll click into a peg on the hands. Unfortunately, the elbows aren't the only thing that's a bit on the weak side on the Unicorn Gundam. Come on. Click in there. Things like this never want to line up on camera, do they? And as I've said, the hand doesn't really like to hold on to, well, doesn't really like to hold up once it's holding on to the Beam Magnum, which is very unfortunate. Of course, you can't always have them dual wield it and support it so it will stay up, but something like this, I mean, I feel like he should have been able to hold on to it straight out of the box. Yes, it might be a bit front heavy, but it's not that giant of a thing compared to some other things some other mobile suits have had to hold up. So yeah, it is rather unfortunate. Clean this off again. And you can pull out this peg and store it on the back, because it seems kind of obvious at this point that the hands just don't really want to hold on to it. Or pull it back out, and with this peg, store it on the arm. There we go. So either or, oh, be careful not to pull it out again. Out you come, and put that back on there. Second thing we're getting, the Hyper Bazooka. Same kind of thing as with the B Magnum. We get a handle, but you can put it on either side. Disassemble it and reassemble it again. The main handle here doesn't move, unlike some other bazookas we've seen. One cool thing is this one can transform, go into extended mode or collapse mode for when storing it on the back, because when we pull this thing out, same thing as with a B Magnum, can be stored on the back. We have the ammo clip, which is removable. Can be put in. Unfortunately, unlike the B Magnum, we don't get a spare one, which would have been really cool. I mean, this one can be stored on the back scud, but then, you know, you don't have an ammo clip left for your actual bazooka. So it is cool that this one can be put on the backpack, but I don't really see a point putting this on the backpack when you would have it inside of the bazooka. You know, kinda beating the purpose. But the one thing I really like about this bazooka being able to transform is that it kind of works like the way a tank would work. Once I can get this in. There we go again. And what I was talking about, a cool thing for me is that now it works kind of like a tank, as I was saying, or a cannon, in that you can, you know, fire it, and then as it fires, it collapses in order to, you know, reduce the recoil. And that's definitely a fun thing that you can do with the bazooka. And then the final two weapons that we're getting are two of the beam Gatling guns. You all know what we want to use them for, but first let's put them in the hands, because you can also do that. First of all, this is their collapsed mode. This slides out, there we go. Put it inside of the hand. Flip up the visor, and then this right here will fold out and come and stay in the hand. Don't make me do another jump cut. And then, you know, you can hold on to it with both hands, and well, it will rotate, but not that easily, because the visor and the handle do have a tendency to rotate along with the entire four barrels, but they will rotate. So that's a cool thing, a cool action feature going on there, but, you know, hindered a little bit by some other things that are going on with those. But let's remove them and use them for what we really want to use them for. But in order to do that, we will of course need some parts from the shield. And the thing about the shield is, you know, they really are, to put it, they really knew how to use their parts well, because these parts are going to be used to attach the beam Gatling guns to the arm, because they use the same connection here, slots in there. There we go. And gently wraps around the arm, which means that it's not going to interfere with the destroy mode whatsoever. It will, however, be a bit of a problem for the unchained mode, but hey, that was something that was made up after they thought about the connection for the shield. With all the little bits and pieces swapped out, mounting them is very easy. You just gotta put these pegs into the holes, and then make sure you line up the little pegs on the end. You gotta do, make sure they click right there. The two holes here are just going to slide over each other, and that is of course where you're gonna put the shield into. Also, a really cool thing about the shield is this slider here will go up and down and will actually lock into place a little bit with a nice satisfying click. So that shield also isn't gonna go anywhere. Put it on there and it's completely mounted. And then onto the final weapon included with the Gundam Unicorn. We get 4 beam sabers. Now, in Unicorn mode, this is the farthest that the Beam Tonfas are going to come out. It's only going to be in Destroy mode or Unchained mode that they're going to come out completely. So, the bad news is we get 4 of these Beam Sabers, but we only get 2 Beam Saber blades. And now, for most models, that wouldn't be too much of a problem because they can only use 2 Beam Sabers anyways. But because we have the Tonfas, which can be deployed in Destroy mode, and we have the normal Beam Sabers on the back, which can be put in the hand, he can wield all 4 Beam Sabers at the same time. And believe me, it looks absolutely badass. So yeah, it's really a shame we only get these, but they are the standard 160 scale Beam Sabers that you get with pretty much anything. So you might have some spares hanging around, but regardless, they look really nice. The one thing that, well, wasn't really necessary is that there are pegs in both sides, while you only need one peg. Well, while you only need one hole to put them in the hands, and there's only one peg on the Tonfas too. So there really isn't a need to have the 2 holes right there, and it only looks a bit off when they're on the back. But regardless, because of course they just click into the hand, they fit absolutely perfectly, and they're at a nice normal natural angle too. And one of the few weapons that Unicorn doesn't really have a lot of problem holding up. Unlike, of course, the pretty heavy Gatling gun. And if you want to get some really cool action poses with the Gatling gun, well, be prepared to strengthen those joints rather significantly, because you could still put something in his hand like the B Magnum or the Hyper Bazooka, but then it's going to go absolutely nowhere. Now, let's say that because he can't really hold on to his weapons all that well, you don't want to use your weapons. Well, they got you covered with the base, because all the weapons you get will actually fit on there, so that you don't accidentally lose these giant weapons. Yeah. So, one thing I was actually kind of surprised about is, especially the Beam Gatling guns, even though they don't actually mount on here, well, it doesn't look like they really mount anywhere. They're actually on there pretty solidly, and they're not just going to randomly fall off. So that was rather surprising, except for this one doesn't really want to stick right now. Come on. Come on. There we go. And then the other weapons. This one goes right in there. On there. And even the shield will go in here. And you have a few more holes as well for an extra Beam Magnum, an extra Hyper Bazooka, an extra shield, and some other shields on the back as well. So you can store a few things of the full armor, but not all of them. But hey, you can store everything you get with this set. So now let's move on to a few final accessories that we're getting. A very nicely detailed figure of Benager. Lots of fine lines on here. Really nice. And I have to say, at first when I looked at it, I thought he was holding on to Haro, but it turns out he's just holding his helmet. Someone should really try to modify that into a Haro. Then what I've already shown, the extra E-packs for the B Magnum. Simply click onto the basket. There we go. And then finally, we also get a few quote-unquote junk parts, which are only going to be useful if you buy the LED set. So, I'm kinda confused why they decided to include these parts with the normal Unicorn, because, well, why not simply include them with the LED set if you're releasing the LED set separately? I mean, it almost looks as if they decided, well, if they at first were going to release the LED set with the Unicorn, like, oh yeah, let's put all of those things on the runners of the Unicorn, and then kind of last minute decided, you know what, it's going to be a bit too expensive, but we're not going to bother taking these thingies from the runners. Of course, just having a few extra parts isn't going to jack up the price enormously. So hey, it's really only this little handful of extra pieces and one that just fell off. So there you have it. Just make sure not to lose these, because I'm not sure if you're getting spares with the LED set. So kind of the same story as with the stickers. If you lose some of these, you might really be screwed when trying to put in the LED. So, you know, for anyone who's thinking about buying the LED set later on, I hope you're pretty good at not losing stuff. And that brings us to the main event of this model kit, the transformation. Now, in order to prevent this video from getting way too long, I've decided to make the transformation itself a separate video. Click the annotation link right here if you want to see it. And in this video, in about 5 seconds, you will just get the recap of the transformation. So, let's get on with it. And after a bit of transforming, we have the normal destroy mode on our left and the unchained mode on our right. In short, I have heard some complaints about the transformation of the unicorn being difficult or tricky to pull off. Well, in general, it's a bit time consuming, but it's not really difficult. At no point during the transformation I feared like I was going to break something. It's definitely not something like the XS Gundam or the debacle that the real great Zeta Gundam was. The transformation itself is very solid, and once a few pieces, you know, you kind of have to figure out that click you have to do in order to get them transformed, but at no point in the transformation you feel like you're going to rip the damn thing apart. So overall, I feel like it was very well executed, and also in its transform mode, it is still very solid. It doesn't feel like the transformation affects the structural integrity at all, and overall, the transformation was just very fun to pull off, actually, which isn't something that can be said for all transformations out there. So have a lot of fun figuring out which one you like best. Create a hybrid maybe. Go crazy. It's Gunpla, and Gunpla should be what you want it to be. With all of that out of the way, there is one final thing that has to be mentioned before moving on to the conclusion. The inner frame. For a perfect rate, the inner frame and the gimmick that usually go along with that for the perfect rates is a bit lacking on the unicorn. However, there is a very good reason why the inner frame isn't as detailed, and that is of course the Psycho frame. And in fact, there isn't a whole lot of that inner frame going on to begin with, and what is there isn't really detailed. Like I said, there also aren't any real hydraulics or any special internal gimmicks going on as you have with a lot of other perfect rates, and that is of course because all of those gimmicks and all that effort went into the transformation. It might be a deciding factor for people who really like to look at the inner works, who really like to do detailing on the inside. So for them, you know, it might be a bit disappointing, but for everyone else, it's absolutely nothing to worry about. The reason the inner frame isn't really there is because, as I said, all of their effort went to the transformation, which they pulled off absolutely perfectly. As always, the inevitable question is, do you want to buy this? And well, for 20,000 yen, it's not the most expensive perfect rate, it's not the cheapest perfect rate, it's like somewhere right above the middle. So, price quality for what you're getting, I would say this is a very good deal we're getting. Of course, it's a perfect rate, obviously it's going to be a great kit, but also considering all the accessories we're getting with the transformation, even for a perfect rate, despite maybe not having a superb inner frame, I would say there's still a lot of play value going on. And out of all of the perfect rates, this one has the most, you know, customizable options because of the NTD in combination with the Unchained mode. I really like what they did here with this perfect rate. They just went that extra step above and beyond, because really all they had to do was give us Unicorn mode and Destroy mode. But they decided to just go that little extra step, give us those extra gimmicks for the Unchained mode, and it is absolutely fantastic. I wasn't really sure how to feel about the different modes looking at the pictures, but looking at him in real life, Unchained mode has definitely grown on me. And quite unfortunately so for Destroy mode, because looking at Destroy mode now feels like it's almost lacking a bit. I feel like the Unchained mode, it kinda completes the Destroy mode. So it's a very cool mode what they did there. And 20,000 yen, as I said, for what we're getting is a solid deal. For the Unicorn, pretty much all of the standard weapons are there. For the normal Unicorn, you get what you'd expect. The only thing that I could really say is missing is a second ammo pack for the bazooka, because the manual tells you to use the ammo pack that you should use for the bazooka. So yeah, that was a bit, well, only a slight nitpick there. And another thing that was slightly annoying is the shoulders. That's probably going to be the biggest problem. They're not that strong. Same goes for the hands. Might cause some problems with posing, and well, problems just more inconveniences for the hands, and definitely some problems with the shoulders. Though that's gonna be a big job for the super glue trick. Do that enough, and I feel like you should be able to fix that. So just put a bit of effort into that, and the biggest problems of this kit should definitely be solvable. So what we're getting, a very nice deal. You get a bunch of different weapons. You get the bazooka, Gatling guns, the beam magnum, and really, how many perfect rates come with Gatling guns? So overall, I think this set is very much worth the 20,000 yen, especially when in a short instant we will look at how massive, how absolutely massive the Unicorn is in Destroy mode, or Unchained mode as he is right now, or well, kind of my own hybrid version of the Unchained mode. And well, the final thing I'm going to mention then in this conclusion is the LED set. Personally, I didn't really feel the LED set because I have to give them one big credit here. Some really good kudos for them. They made a really brilliant decision to release the LED set separately. If this entire set was 32,000 yen, I wouldn't really have felt it. Personally, I feel the LEDs are very gimmicky. For 12,000 yen, not my cup of tea. For some people, it's going to be absolutely great. So that is a brilliant move on Bad Nice part to separate them. As I said over the course of the video, I feel like maybe it was a bit of an afterthought, like we get the spare parts, maybe it was a last minute decision, but it was definitely a good decision. Because for me, the LEDs at 12,000 yen, you can literally buy a second perfect rate for that. So that's definitely something to keep in mind if you're planning to go for the LEDs and turn your Unicorn into a fancy Christmas tree. Though a Christmas tree that probably looks pretty damn badass in a dark room. However, the pictures I've seen of it, well, the review pictures I've seen didn't really convince me. The promotion pictures looked absolutely badass. So as for the LEDs, decide that for yourself what you want to make of that. The base model is an absolute must grab. And then, well, the full armor add-on parts, well, it's an online limited. Go figure. On to some size comparisons, and when I said that this thing was massive in Destroy mode, I meant massive. Here is next to the standard size Strike Gundam, the Ale Strike, and you can see he's not coming quite close. Neither is the 160 scale Gelgoog here, which is significantly shorter. Heck, he's almost the same as the 148 scale Mega Size RX-78-2. And when we take the antennas into account, the V-fins, he's actually bigger than the RX-78-2 Mega Size. Head height, slightly smaller than the Mega Size, but still for a 160 scale to be the equal of a 148 scale is pretty damn impressive in terms of size. And because I can, here is next to the 148 scale Gym Custom and Zaku 3. You know, for tradition's sake. And last, but definitely not least, some size comparisons in Unicorn mode. Let's bring in the perfect rate Strike Gundam again. And the 160 scale Gelgoog. As you can probably tell, he's not as imposing as a Destroy mode or the Unchained mode, but he's still pretty damn tall. And to wrap things up, next to the mega-sized Gundam. Well, that's all for this review, and see you guys next time.